All right. And then we talked about Chaco Canyon. And we talked about Chaco Canyon because there's a lot going on in Chaco Canyon. Remember, the Chaco Canyon is located here. So where is it? It's in the Four Corners region. Technically, it's in New Mexico. When was around 1000 to 1200 CE. They only were there for about 200 years. That was it. Okay, this is it. As you look at the canyon, I want you to realize, just like other places, that this was a whole lot of sites here. The ones we're going to talk about are Chaco Canyon, Pueblo Bonito right down here, and then we're going to talk about Hovenweed Castle, which is up here. All right. So, the biggest building here is Pueblo Bonito. And remember, it is a huge complex that in its heyday had close to 700 rooms. Remember, it was stair-stepped up and there's some rooms underneath on top. Remember, the circular regions here were all called kivas. Okay? And the kivas, we think each of these kivas represented different families or clans, and then they had some great kivas, some very large kivas where they could have groups of over 100 people in there at a time. Alright, this is the way it looks nowadays. Astronomical alignments, this is a meridian wall, which means it's a north-south wall, and there's an east wall off to the side. Okay? An east-west wall going outward. You see it here. This is the east-west wall here, and then the other side is slightly not lined up with that. Alright, that's Pueblo Bonito. We talked about how they built it in levels, what kind of masonry they used with the stones, how originally it was built like this, and we think that was for a passive type of solar heating, where in the summer it would keep it cooler, and in the winter it would keep it warmer with the sunlight reflecting off. So in the center of it here was warmer than the surrounding area. This was just showing off their construction, putting a door in the corner. More of it showing multiple levels, even though the floors are all gone. You can see this was multiple levels here. This was 3 levels high. There's relative size for the doors. This is the one that they redid to make it look like it was back in their time. Just more pictures from it. One thing is, when they left, it was interesting that when they left, they actually bricked it in. They didn't just leave, they actually filled it up. Which we're not sure why, unless there were some evil spirits or something there. It would have taken a lot of work. All right, Casa Rinconada is a giant kiva across the way. Way up there is Pueblo Bonito, about a half a mile away. Here's Casa Rinconada, which is a giant kiva, but it's by itself. It's not part of a big structure of buildings like the other kivas we saw were. The interesting thing about this one, and the astronomical alignments for Casa Rinconada, remember, this is all the same time, same location. Is that the doors are on the north and south side. This is straight north, this is straight south. North was very important to these people. There was one window. The one window in there has an astronomical alignment as well. Here it is over here on the side. This is the window. Remember, they had a trench where they could sneak in, jump up, because they believed the people came from the ground in what they called the Sipapu. And on that day, which was the summer solstice sunrise, sunlight goes through that window and hits one of these niches. Remember, there's upper lit niches, and then there's 6 lower ones that goes right into one of the lower niches on the summer solstice sunrise. And then the cardinal points north, south, east, and west. We think all the performers entered from the north side, which would be that side, and the spectators came in from the south side. This would have been completely covered when it was working, when they were using it. Okay, also in Chaco Canyon, we have Fajada Butte. On Fajada Butte, remember, this is at the end of the canyon. This is where Anna Sofar was up there looking at petroglyphs, and she found the petroglyph, and she found that this spiral petroglyph, that the shadow from the rocks on the summer solstice, it creates this dagger, and this is sometimes called the sun dagger. It creates this sunlight that goes right through the center of the spiral on the summer solstice. On the equinoxes, it doesn't hit the center, but over here in this small spiral on the side, you get one right in the center of that on the equinoxes. On the winter solstice, you get one that brackets, or two of them that bracket the spiral pattern of this object. Here it is, a picture of it on the summer solstice. You can see the spiral pattern, you can see the sun dagger going right through the center. Very cool. Here it is on the winter solstice, where it's bracketing the spiral. See the spiral in here? Alright, that was Fajada Butte. And then we also had the supernova petroglyph. In the supernova petroglyph, there were petroglyphs all over. And these are some of the ones we talked in more detail about what they are and how they made them. But they're all along the canyon, very cool to see. But if you walk all the way down the canyon, it's about 3 miles from Pueblo Bonito, you get to this location, and up under here, right here, you can see they painted the sun, not the sun, the moon and the star in a hand. Here it is. And we think that what they were painting was in 1054 AD, what we see now as the Crab Nebula, is the remains of a supernova, a star that blew up, and it got very bright in the sky back in July of 1054. They would have been able to see it, and they would have seen it right next to the crescent moon, and we think that's what they were painting here. And they painted this. The good thing is they put it up under a rock ledge, and so that's protected from the elements, so 1,000 years later, nearly 1,000 years later, we can still see it. There it is in more detail. This shows it again, and this was not the only place. You see, this is a different one. This is a different one in the Four Corners region where they did a hieroglyph of the same thing. The star got very bright for a short while, and then it faded off after that. And now we just see the remains of it as the Crab Nebula. All right, that was that. And the last place we covered that's on this test is Hovenweep Castle. And Hovenweep Castle is still the Anasazi. It might be slightly later than this. We think that some of these people, remember the people were the Anasazis. Some of these people, once they left Chaco, went and settled up there by Mesa Verde and Hovenweep. So this might have been slightly later, 100 years later or so. But the buildings are very similar. This is located right on the border between Utah and Colorado. I mean, it's pretty much right smack on the border. And here it is. It's a little canyon with the buildings. The building we care about is that one. They call it the castle. We don't know if it's a castle, but it was definitely built for defense. As you'll see here. The only entrance to it is a door over here, and there's a ledge here, and it's only about this wide, so you didn't want to walk out there while you're half asleep. You'd fall off into the canyon. And then it has these little tiny holes down low where you can shoot bow and arrows through. Here's another one here. This is important for the astronomical alignment. And so it was built very defensively. At the end of the canyon you can see goes down that way. Here's another one right here, another one back here, but they're very small. The windows were up high where people couldn't get in. But that one's also important here because remember they're the astronomical alignments. The astronomical alignments are these. So here's the door, and then there's these two holes. Those are the two I pointed out. When the sunlight goes through this one, through here, and hits the inside door, there's another door to this back circular room, that happens only on the winter solstice. When it comes in over here, summer solstice, so it comes in the side on this side, it goes back into the corner of this room right back here. It hits exactly in the corner of the room. And then on the equinox, halfway between, it goes through the door, through the other door, and into that room on that one day. We talked about the fact that if you watched it every day, you could see the sun moving to different positions. As the sun moves across the sky from day to day, it's going to change positions and move across the wall, depending on what day it was. And you could have used it as a calendar. We don't know that they used it for that, but you could have used it for that. All right, that's all I have. If you know all that stuff, you'll do great on the test.